Hey folks, welcome back to My Kitten Reads. I'm Eleanor and this is my much delayed May reading wrap up. I do apologise, I got really sick again at the start of the month and I'm still trying to shake the very last tiny bit of the cough. So, and I also ended up having a house inspection to prepare for that then got cancelled. And so I've just been like ill and had other priorities. But yes, May reading wrap up, which is going to be short because I only read 6 things in May. Yeah, I'm in a bit of a slump. I'm way behind on all of my goals. I'm catching up a little bit in June, at least overall, but still, yeah, it's going to take a bit. Anyway, I did read 6 things in May. They were mostly rereads and easy things. But yes, I did read. So the first thing I finished was Sleeping Murder by Agatha Christie. So this is actually the last published Agatha Christie Miss Marple novel, which I accidentally picked up in out of order. So because I've been trying to read them in publication order. But anyway, it's probably not my favourite Miss Marple. There's something about the psychological tension in this one that makes me a little bit tense and uncomfortable. It's the same with the filmed versions, like the Geraldine McEwen ITV version is not my favourite of those, and does send things in all sorts of interesting it's a bit creepy. And actually recently while rewatching the what's her name? The Joan, the ones from like the 80s or whatever, that everyone loves so much. I actually ended up skipping over most of Sleep Murder because it makes me feel awkward. But still a reasonably enjoyable read, and it's Miss Marple, and I do love me a Miss Marple. Then I finally finished my reread of Libriomancer by Jim C. Hines. This I've been rereading supposedly at the gym, which I haven't been too much at all because I keep getting sick. So it took me a while. But this is the first in the Magic Ex Libris series, which I read the first 2 books years ago, couldn't remember much about them. And I have the 3rd and 4th books sitting on my physical TBR shelf. So as part of my goal to try and get through stuff that's on that shelf and get complete series, I decided to go back and reread the first 2. So that I finally finished my reread of the first one. So Libriomancer is essentially a magic system in our world where through the power of the printed versions of books being read by millions of people, you can pull things out of them. And so the Libriomancers are the ones that deal with this around the world, particularly with locking books where they're too dangerous. Because what could come out of them could be too dangerous for the world. But in this case, the vampires are very irritated. They come and attack our main character, who gets rescued by a dryad, and end up trying to figure out why the vampires are irritated, why Gutenberg, who's still alive and a sorcerer who created the whole Libriomancer thing, is missing, and who is trying to basically send the world into revealing magic exists by vampire. So it was good. It was fun. I haven't started the second one yet, which I have even less idea what happened in the second one. This is why I'm rereading them. But yeah, it was a good reread. It just took me a while because I was reading it by ebook, mostly at the gym. So and then I read 4 different novels by Sydney Salyer, which are all Austen variations. 2 of them were new, 2 of them were ones I'd previously read. So I read Rising from the Ashes, which is one where when she's 17, Elizabeth is made to marry Mr. Collins, who abuses her. But within a year, she's had a child. Her father dies, and then Mr. Collins dies, and then her son dies. And so Lizzie ends up having inherited Longbourn. And so that's where the story starts. And so everything's kind of, her relationship with her mother is contentious. she puts herself in charge of raising her sisters, and so therefore when they meet the Bingleys and the Darcys, they're in a very different situation. Then I read Turnabout, which is where Mrs. Bennet has a very wealthy aunt who soothes her nerves by saying she will always... Mrs. Bennet doesn't know how wealthy her aunt is because of her marriage, but she says, your cottage, I will always leave, my cottage near Longbourn is always available to you after I die, so that if Mr. Bennet passes away, you will always have a home. But she's actually set up things very, very differently for the girls, and so, but the girls don't know that. So it calms down Mrs. Bennet, and therefore we start our story in a bit of a different situation, which is what most of these variations are. And then were the two that I reread, which is Consequences and Consequences. So this is one of those ones where Mr. Bennet is actually distantly related to a duke and is going to actually inherit, which no one knows except Lizzie. And in this particular version, Darcy actually apologises after the American Assembly. He and Lizzie become friends, but then when he goes to London, he tells her, I hope I haven't raised your expectations because you're below me. Lizzie, knowing that her father is about to inherit a dukedom, is like, fine, but is really irritated, and yeah, shenanigans ensue because there are consequences to Mr. Darcy's words. And then I reread Reversed Fortune, also by Sydney Salyer, which this is not my favourite, actually. It's probably one of my least liked of her works. And then this is where Mr. Darcy and Mr. Collins were switched at birth. And so Mr. Collins was raised as the heir to Pemberley, and Mr. Darcy was raised as the heir to Longbourn with an abusive father. But in this one, Lady Anne Darcy is still alive and knows that Mr. Collins is not actually her son because he doesn't have the Fitzwilliam birthmark. And of course, things come to a head when both men end up near Longbourn. And Lady Anne Darcy finds her son. And there's a bit of confusion because Lizzie gets ideas into her head that upset her and she makes assumptions. And yeah, but it's not my favourite trope, really, the switched at birth. So those are what I read in May. None of them were by non-white authors. None of them were about queer characters. One of them was a reread that's going to hopefully move me towards finishing a series and getting a couple more books off my physical TBR. So that wasn't great. It wasn't a great reading month. I was recovering from illness, and then I had a whole bunch of university stuff to do, and it just wasn't a good reading month. This June's been better so far. Still not ideal in terms of some of my goals, but better. But yeah, so hopefully I'm getting back on track. But otherwise, I will see you all again really soon. Bye.